HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents A Loving Approach to Dementia Care, 2nd edition, making meaningful connections with the person who has Alzheimer's disease or other dementia or memory loss. By Laura Wayman. Read by Merlington. Foreword. Carrie G. Rotter, Memphis Comfort Keepers. In this book, Laura Wayman presents a groundbreaking new approach to dementia care that encompasses everything from understanding what the condition is and is not, to its implications for those who suffer with it and their caregivers. Much has been written about dementia disorders, from diagnosis to treatment to tools for caregivers. It is Laura's unique methodology and perspective that make her insight so valuable to families struggling with dementia care and its implications. A Loving Approach to Dementia Care is written with compassion and understanding for the caregivers who frequently sacrifice their own health in caring for a loved one. Laura's methodology is refreshingly different and accessible because of its simplicity and practicality. It is not the clinician who speaks to us from an academic viewpoint, but the practitioner whose strategies have been borne out in facility settings and thousands of individual homes across the country. As a daughter who experienced firsthand the pernicious impact of Alzheimer's on both the sufferer, her father, and his caregiver, her mother, Laura writes with the passion of conviction and proven experience. Science struggles with most dementia disorders, especially Alzheimer's, because treatment options are limited. The formulaic approach to dealing with these disorders rarely broaches the real-life challenges of caregivers grappling with a landscape that changes ruthlessly and frequently. Most caregivers seek to learn a path to help them navigate each day. But unfortunately, what works for short periods does not work indefinitely. As Laura explains, caregivers must embrace the present and live in the moment. This book is all about moments. Countless moments, day in and day out. Moments of wonder, exasperation, tears, triumphs, mistakes, learning experiences, and spiritual challenge. But it is also a book of hope and love and sacrifice, through which we enhance meaning in our lives as we learn more about who we are when caregiving becomes our role or calling. Laura is our guide in a universe as topsy-turvy as Alice in Wonderland and inverted as the Twilight Zone. Caregivers will be relieved to discover virtually every situation they encounter is addressed in some fashion, with one caveat. As Laura explains, dementia cases are as singular as fingerprints. As no two cases are identical, approaches must be tweaked. But caregivers using this book will discover solutions that work and are flexible in application. Importantly, Laura distills the rationale behind her approaches in such clear and logical fashion that caregivers will learn to refine and trust their instincts when new challenges arise. In this 2nd edition of A Loving Approach to Dementia Care, Laura has added 2 new chapters that expand the spectrum of caregiving from the individual to entire communities. Chapter 3 addresses the typical first response of a dementia diagnosis, which is denial. Denial ultimately evolves to acceptance, but only after the preponderance of evidence is overwhelming. If dementia acceptance is inevitable for any objective caregiver presented with its telltale signs and timeline, and given the avalanche of dementia disorders we are facing as a society, then why should community acceptance not be the logical extension? Also new to this edition is Chapter 4, which deals with anosognosia. This biological condition precludes our ability to even be aware of the existence of illness. Is anosognosia perhaps analogous to society's slowness in becoming dementia-aware at a macro level and facilitating appropriate community responses to what is becoming a pandemic? Laura Wayman's book is a clarion call to action, positive, life-affirming, constructive action that helps us better cope with a condition whose boundaries for now are essentially out of our control. There is an analog in Laura's call to arms to Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl asserted that ultimately each individual remains entirely unfettered in interpreting actions and circumstances beyond his or her control, in a manner that allows the individual to transcend the oppression of an implacable foe. We too have that freedom and responsibility in combating dementia disorders. Laura gives us the tools and inspiration to fight a battle where loss is not the inevitable outcome. Individually and collectively, we would be wise to pay heed to Laura's message. Chapter 1. Introduction. Navigating the Journey. Caring for a person who has dementia is a labor of devotion and patience. Sadly, many caregivers selflessly sacrifice their own well-being during the process. In addition, many caregivers, whether they are lay caregivers looking after a loved one at home or professionals working in a clinical setting, do not have the knowledge or training they need to meet the challenges of dementia. That is exactly where successful caregiving breaks down. Providing care is an important and noble endeavor, but to be able to provide the best possible care, you must also take care of yourself. So pause here and ask yourself one simple question. Would it be okay with you, the caregiver, if you experienced a lasting sense of relief? I have asked many caregivers this question. Not surprisingly, no one has answered no. If you are caring for someone with a form of dementia, such as Alzheimer's disease or another cognitive impairment, this book is intended to help lighten your load every day. It is possible to simultaneously provide better care both for the person with dementia and for yourself. Of course, every family and situation is different. You may have been thrust into this caregiving role unexpectedly, without any training or even any encouragement. Perhaps the care is being provided at home, with or without other family or professional in-home support. Or maybe the care is provided in a specialized memory care unit, an assisted living environment, or a skilled nursing facility. Although caregiving is often inspiring and rewarding, it can be very difficult. Caring for someone with a cognitive impairment can be even more difficult than caring for someone with a physical impairment who is fully competent mentally and emotionally. The complications of confusion, forgetfulness, and memory loss, and the behaviors that go along with them, can be traumatic for the person with the disease and for the person providing care. Because of the dementia, neither the person involved nor the relationship will ever be the same. Along with the challenges of caring for a person who has a form of dementia, caregivers, especially family members, will experience conflicting emotions. Their feelings may swing from guilt, denial, and distress one moment to empathy, acceptance, and understanding the next. Not every circumstance is happy, positive, or easy. You may only rarely come to a place of acceptance or understanding about this experience, or maybe not at all. You may struggle to find any meaning along the road you are traveling. During my decades of working with caregivers, I have heard many accounts of what the experience is like, from the sad and hollow to experiences rich in significance. Everyone faces obstacles when caring for a loved one. Some of these obstacles come in the form of uncomfortable or painful emotional histories or past unresolved conflicts. Yet with an open mind, you can essentially feel your way through the process, taking a more holistic view of your unique dementia care circumstances and challenges. The following popular fable gently illustrates how each person's perception of dementia, however different it may be from someone else's experience, is, nevertheless, right. The Elephant and the Blind Men. Once upon a time, there lived 6 blind men in a village. One day the villagers told them, "Hey, there is an elephant in the village today." They had no idea what an elephant was. They decided, even though we would not be able to see it, let us go and feel it. All of them went to the elephant. Every one of them touched the elephant. "Hey, the elephant is like a pillar," said the first man, who touched the leg of the elephant. "Oh, no, it is like a rope," said the second man, who touched the tail. "Oh, no, it is like a thick branch of a tree," said the third man, who touched the elephant's trunk. "It is like a big hand fan," said the fourth man, who touched the ear. "It is like a huge wall," said the fifth man, who touched the belly. "It is like a solid pipe," said the sixth man, who touched the tusk. The men began to argue about the elephant, and every one of them insisted that he was right. A wise man was passing by. He stopped and asked them what was the matter. "We cannot agree on what the elephant is like," they told him. And the wise man calmly explained, "All of you are right. Each one of you has a different idea because each of you touched a different part of the elephant. So, actually, the elephant has all of those features, everything you all said." That ended the argument. They all were happy that they all were right. Anekantavad, or the theory of manifold predictions. I originally read this fable when I was young. At the time, I was amused by the poor blind man who had to feel the tail. Of course, there could be serious implications with that particular anatomical end of an elephant. Years later, I know that as a caregiver you may feel as if you are living out a more contemporary proverb. Some days you're the pigeon, and some days you're the statue. Your loved one, or client or resident, if you are a professional caregiver, may have a variety of challenges that stem from physical, emotional, and behavioral causes. Perhaps the person you are caring for is unable to communicate clearly without crying, due to a brain injury that diminished his or her ability to control sad or painful emotions. You may be caring for a parent who was verbally or even physically abusive to you, or who did not make you feel safe and loved as a child. Now you are attempting to develop a new relationship, even though you cannot erase your feelings or memories. As a result of these and many other factors, you are touching only part of the dementia elephant, able to view only part of the situation that the dementia has inserted into your life. I have spent many years assisting caregivers just like you. As you hear about the diverse experiences that I and others have had working with dementia-challenged adults, their families, and professional caregivers, you will gain more insight into the intriguing world where the adult with dementia exists. You will also develop a new perspective on many of the common obstacles facing care providers, and learn to enjoy your loved one or client at a deeper level. This book, and the special techniques described within it, will equip you with the compass you need to navigate this journey successfully. Caregivers frequently ask for the right way to respond to the difficult behaviors they encounter. While there is no one-size-fits-all magic formula, there are many proven techniques to help guide you. My personal studies in this field have included excellent foundational resources, such as The Validation Breakthrough by Naomi Feil, The 36-Hour Day by Nancy L. Mace and Peter V. Rabins, and The Best Friends Approach to Alzheimer's Care by Virginia Bell and David Troxell. My vision is to share as much knowledge and insight with you as possible, both from my own experience and from those of other professional and family caregivers. Each chapter chronicles a real-life story about caregiving. You may very well find yourself relating to these heartwarming accounts. Every story is followed by 2 sections, lessons learned and perceptions and approaches, that can empower you and make your situation more manageable. Use these tools to make traveling this frequently arduous trek much less stressful and much more successful. In the chapters of this book, I describe the affirmative response method of communication. This communication style is based on the insight that it is impossible to bring adults with dementia into reality. Instead of attempting to correct the dementia-challenged person's perception of the world, you can learn to affirm your loved one or client's view of reality and to relate to him or her within that framework. As you give affirmative responses to the dementia-challenged person, you will receive the same from him or her in return, confirming that you have successfully made a connection. The affirmative response method uses simple and valuable techniques to facilitate quality interactions and enhanced emotional connections with the person who has dementia. These interactions and communications reduce the caregiver's stress level. This innovative approach to communicating opens a window into the world where your loved one or client exists. It will increase your awareness of the equally important need for your own care and the vital role you play in the caregiver-care-receiver relationship. As I travel the country supporting, training, and encouraging caregivers on their dementia journey, I continue to learn additional care techniques. To bring the new techniques to this edition, I created the Dementia Aware Guide to Caregiving, which appears at the end of the book, after Chapter 19. Here you will find brief examples of common challenges, followed by different options for providing loving care in that specific scenario. This feature of the book allows you to spend a few moments thinking through how you might respond in these situations. You may decide to change just 1 or 2 things in your caregiving approach, and that may make a big difference right away for you, your loved one, and your relationship. When you become a caregiver for someone with dementia, whatever its cause, the key is to shift your mindset to becoming more dementia-aware. Doing so will help you to transform your dementia care experience from crisis to comfort. After each opportunity to raise awareness and understanding about how dementia impacts individuals, their families, and their communities, I have been gratified to witness enhanced feelings of hope and comfort for all involved. My experience, observations, and research over years of working with family and professional caregivers, as well as dementia-challenged adults, have shown me that using the affirmative response method of communication, in combination with the stress management tools and the fresh dementia-aware insights described in this book, help caregivers experience many more meaningful moments with the person they are caring for. I believe that you can allow yourself to experience a lasting sense of relief, and that communication and stress management are the crucial ingredients in doing so. I work with family and professional caregivers as a consultant, often assisting with difficult behaviors and developing a care plan. Whenever I use a tried-and-true technique from my program and have a successful outcome, The observing caregiver will ask me something like, "How did you do that? Mom doesn't respond to me that way." I immediately explain that I am able to enter the situation from an outside perspective, without the limitations of the baggage that develops over many years of a long relationship. My perspective allows me to view more than just the single dimension of the elephant that is immediately obvious, the dementia and the undesired behavior. Unlike a frustrated, on the verge of burning out caregiver who may project negativity, I am able to come in with a fresh approach, and the person with dementia is more receptive. This does not mean that only someone from outside of the relationship can achieve the same results. Regardless of the current dynamic between you and your loved one or client, you can enjoy positive results by approaching the situation from a new angle. Repeatedly, I have seen the benefits of viewing the elephant from a broader perspective while still keeping key principles in mind. The case studies you are about to hear will help you develop a new perspective. As you apply the techniques in this book, celebrate even the smallest accomplishments and moments of heartfelt connection. I wish it were possible for me to spend time with all of my listeners and to learn from you. It is my hope that through this book, I will enter your home or your professional caregiving setting and work alongside you. You will find valuable information from my own experiences and from those of the hundreds of caregivers with whom I have had the honor of working. To complement this book, I highly recommend that all caregivers connect with additional resources. The Lone Ranger made quite a name for himself, but caregiving should never be a solo role. Reach out to your community and ask for help from professional care providers, gerontologists, social workers, educators, physicians, nurses, nationwide organizations such as the Alzheimer's Association, senior centers, caregiver resource centers, caregiver support group facilitators, family members, neighbors, and other caregivers who are in similar situations. Every day, special people in these positions teach me something new and helpful. As you hear about the affirming responses practiced by countless lay caregivers and professional care providers, you will, I hope, grant yourself a creative license to develop your own personal care plan, to create resourceful and imaginative methods to provide better care for your loved one or client and for yourself. We are now embarking on this journey together, and we will meet many amazing and inspiring people along the way. Chapter 2. Peggy, The Ultimate Toll, with Alicia Murray. Peggy was a wonderful mother of 5, grandmother of 14, and wife of her husband Jack. Over the years, Peggy and Jack had carefully planned for a fun retirement. Their goal was to spend time with the kids and grandkids and travel all over the United States. They had decided years before that they would sell their home at retirement, buy a recreational vehicle, and live the carefree life. And that's what they did, visiting their relatives scattered all over the West and square dancing everywhere they went. After 15 years in the RV, Peggy sensed that the change to a larger, more stable home was on the horizon. Her large and growing family could not stay with her in the RV, and she needed more space to entertain them. Also, Jack's health and eyesight had started to decline, and Peggy had to do more of the driving. So Peggy and Jack made the decision to sell their home on wheels. They found a double-wide mobile home in a small town in northeastern Colorado, which they could afford on their limited budget. It had the disadvantage of being located far away from the hospitals, doctors, and senior services, but it had the advantage of being next door to their best friends of 40 years. They happily settled in. 3 years passed, and Peggy started to have conversations with her children about Jack's memory loss and other symptoms of dementia. Some of her friends had been caregivers of spouses with dementia, and she had seen what a hard and stressful job it was. Her daughter offered to help, but Peggy insisted she was okay and would alert her if his condition became unmanageable. 2 weeks after this conversation, disaster struck. When Jack and Peggy sat down to dinner, Peggy suffered a massive heart attack. Jack's reactions to this emergency were slowed by his dementia, which was far more advanced than anyone had realized. By the time the neighbors called 911 and the EMTs arrived from the faraway emergency services, Peggy was already gone. Lessons learned. After Peggy's sudden death, the family realized what a high level of care she had been giving Jack 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for several years. The common tragedy of sudden caregiver illness or death illustrates why stress management is so important for caregivers. Caring for a person with dementia is described by the National Family Caregivers Association as being 3 times more work and stress than caring for someone with other types of illnesses. It is a long journey, and if caregivers do not take time for themselves, they will not be around to care for the person with dementia. Peggy's case is a classic example of the devastating effects of caregiver stress. She was not able to paint a precise picture of how much care Jack was receiving, or how much she herself needed, or to ask for help, even though family, neighbors, and friends had continually offered to help over the years. She was just doing what she had always done, believing she could do it alone. It ended up taking her life. The sheer amount of work caregivers perform can be overwhelming. For the dementia-challenged adult, basic activities of daily living, ADLs, such as bathing, toileting, and dressing, become hard to manage. Many caregivers get so involved in helping that they forget how important they are as the caregiver. In case my message remains unclear, let me say it again. If you do not take care of yourself, you will not be able to care for your loved one or client. When I teach my caregiver training classes, I often ask family caregivers a simple question. Who is the most important person? I am frequently amazed to hear silence in the room. Caregivers struggle with that question because they always put the dementia-challenged care recipients first. After all, it is their job to take care of their loved ones and clients, not to take care of themselves. Right? Wrong. Caregivers are often uncomfortable with being aware of how they themselves are the key ingredient in the caregiving process. At one of my training sessions on communication and stress management, an attendee brought along his wife. I observed that she was showing early signs of dementia, and during our class, I asked that same question. Who is the most important person? His wife was the first to answer, as she lovingly pointed to her husband and said with a smile, "He is." She knew, even in her dementia, how important her husband was in that caregiver-care recipient relationship. Learn to take care of you as well as your loved one. Learn how to manage and cope with stress along the caregiving journey. Perceptions and approaches. Many years of observations and interactions have taught me that communicating with the dementia-challenged person involves much more than the words coming out of your mouth. Most of the communication comes from tone of voice, facial expression, and body language. Adults with dementia communicate on the basis of emotions. Many caregivers do not relate the stress that they are feeling to the trying behaviors the dementia-challenged person is exhibiting, when in fact, dementia-challenged people are like a mirror of emotions. For example, If you try to rush them with, "Hurry up," or "We don't have time."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?